Hey, Toyota Christian Fellowship and Victory Life family. So, I'm sure y'all can tell I'm super excited about this bike build and our new ministry we're starting at church. So, I want to share a story with you. I'm going to talk a little bit and then I'm going to read part of it, so bear with me. I'm losing my voice. Hopefully, I'll get it back before Saturday. But, between 1854 and 1929, about 200,000 orphans and abandoned children in eastern cities were placed on westbound trains and shipped across the United States in search of homes and families. So some of these kids, it was from epidemics. They lost their parents. Some were immigrants. Some became orphaned because of the Civil War, and others because of alcohol and drugs, just like today. But we knew they all needed homes. So they would put them on trains in groups of 30 to 40 and then send them out west. So there's a story about Lee Nailing. Lee Nailing remembers the experience. He and his brothers, his two brothers, were put on the train, and Lee's dad had stuck a letter in his coat pocket and said, "Write me when you get to where you're at, where you're going to be at." So it would be nice to tell you all that Lee wrote his dad, and his dad sold everything he had and went back and got him. And I'm sharing this story from a Max Lucado book called Grace. But check it out. It's a great book. But that isn't how the story goes. So that didn't happen. So Lee went to his, he had his two brothers. They stopped at a town, and one of his brothers got adopted. So all of a sudden now the three brothers were split up. And he went to another town, and a family adopted him and his other brother. So, but Lee had never lived on a farm before. He was from the city. So he didn't know that opening up the chicken coop was a bad idea. So the farmer got aggravated and shipped him out. So now he was separated from both of his brothers. So it was just Lee by himself, feeling like nobody wanted him, nobody cared about him. So let me share a little bit about Lee and what ended up happening with Lee. He went to a family called the Nailings, the Nailing family. And it says, in a succession of sad events, Lee had lost his father. He had ridden a train from New York to Texas. He had been separated from his two brothers and had been kicked out of two different homes. His little heart was about to break. Finally, he was taken to the home of a tall man and a short, plump woman. During the first supper, Lee said nothing. He went to bed making plans to run away. The next morning, they seated him at a breakfast of biscuits and gravy. When he reached for one, well, I'll let him tell you what happened. So this is from Lee Nailing's biography. It said, Mrs. Nailing stopped me. "Not until we've said grace," she explained. I watched as they bowed their heads. Mrs. Nailing began speaking softly to our Father, thanking him for the food and the beautiful day. I knew enough about God to know that the woman's "Our Father" was the same one who was in the "Our Father who art in heaven" prayer that visiting preachers had recited over us at the orphanage. But I couldn't understand why she was talking to him as though he were sitting here with us, waiting for his share of the biscuits. So I began to squirm in my chair. Then Mrs. Nailing thanked God for the privilege of raising a son. I stared as she began to smile. She was calling me a privilege, and Mr. Nailing must have agreed with her, because he was beginning to smile too. For the first time I'd boarded the train, I began to relax. A strange warm feeling began to fill my aloneness, and I looked at the empty chair next to me. Maybe in some mysterious way, our Father was seated there and was listening to the next softly spoken words. Help us make the right choices as we guide him, and help him make the right choices too. Dig in, son. The man's voice startled me. I hadn't even noticed the amen. My mind had stopped at the choices part. As I heaped my plate, I thought about that. Hate and anger and running away had seemed to be my only choices, but maybe there were others. This Mr. Nailing didn't seem so bad, and this thing about having an Our Father to talk to shook me up a little. I ate in silence. After breakfast, as they walked me to the barber shop for a haircut, we stopped at each of the 6 houses on the way. Each time, the Nailings introduced me as our new son. As we left the house, I knew that at first light the next day I would not be running away. There was a hominess here that I'd never known before. At least I could choose to give it a try. And there was something else. Although I didn't know where my dad was or how I could write to him, I had the strong feeling that I had found not one, but 2 new fathers, and I could talk to the both of them. And that's the way it turned out. So we've got the bike build coming up on Saturday. We've got the ministry meeting happening on Sunday at 11:15 in the youth room. Even if you don't go to Victory Life and you want to learn about being a foster parent, be there Sunday at 11:15, and we're going to help you. Think of this. It's another thing in this book that I liked a lot. My parents didn't get a choice. They didn't get to say, "Hey, I don't want that ugly little guy. Let's trade him in for somebody else." They didn't have a choice. They took me home. Adoptive foster parents, though, they have a choice. It's like God has a choice for us. He gives us the choice, and He chose us, and we get a chance to do that with these kids. So if it's on your heart to be a foster parent or just support the ministry, then by all means get with me. And great things are happening. You don't have to adopt or foster a child to be a part of this ministry, I promise you. We've got some big things coming. Thank you. You all take care. Bye.